You're my perfection. See, I need you like the radio. You keep the beat alive. Gotta have you like the stereo. I need you in my life. Hey, you're my obsession. 'Cause baby, you're my melody so sweet. Hey, you're my obsession. Hey, you're my obsession. Listen.
They're looking fantastic. Really like the different studs that we have in the car. Was having an issue though with one of the wheels on the car was scraping a little bit, and come to find out that the coilovers needed to be adjusted a little bit, so we adjusted them more. Got an extra like 3/4 of an inch on these guys. You can tell it was really it's kind of a struggle getting this out. Welcome to Ohio rust, you know, getting all that stuff rusty. Other side over here was scraping on the tire. Reason being is because this new fender that we put in is not the same as the other side. It kind of is a little bit closer in, and we were trying to figure out exactly where it was rubbing, and it was actually right here. There's a little bit of a spot. We kind of bent it back already, but it was rubbing just a little bit on that part, and also just barely on the inside of the fender. This is the last look of these wheels on the car, because these are going up for sale. Really like the look of these wheels the most. Technically, the hub is not the right size for the hub that's on the car. The car is really nice and lined up and flush with the side of the car, otherwise it's really sunk in to the car. I just decided to go with new wheels. I also kind of wanted a switch of some sort, and I just decided to go with the cheapest thing I could find. Those cheapest things were the Nissan 350Z wheels with new tires, new rims. This would be kind of nice. Also, fresh paint. This is all brand spanking new. Merry Christmas to me. So one of the upgrades I wanted to do on the G37 for a while, replace the oil pan, because this guy, as you can see, it's very oily colored. There's a spot here where the oil pan kind of bent, and I thought that if you put enough RTV on that spot, it wouldn't leak anymore, but the oil has leaked through and it just is getting all over. The solution for that is to get a different oil pan. You just get a new one that's just like stock, or you can spend a little bit of extra money and get the baffled oil pan from Z1 Motorsports. Better cooling for the VQ. One of the biggest issues with the VQ37 is overheating and oil temperature getting too hot. Oil cooler is definitely one of the best things to do, but this is another nice thing to upgrade. It just gives you more depth, and also it's baffled, so that way you have better performance for the car. I think it's supposed to add like a couple hundred horsepower or something, so that's kind of exciting, right? Take off the old oil pan. Make sure before you do that, you drain all the oil out, take off the old oil filter, and then once you get all those taken care of, there are several bolts all the way around the oil pan. You just loosen all those guys up. And then also there will be some oil that are still in there, so you do want to be careful not to just drop it on the ground. If you want to do like a pro, the best way to do it is leaving 3 bolts in. You got one right here, one here, and one there. And they have maybe like 2, 3, 4 threads that are in the upper oil pan. What that's going to allow is when you release the RTV, it's just going to drop down on those screws. The RTV will be released from everything else, and then what you can do is loosen up those 3 screws, and then it's not going to, as you're holding it, it's not going to actually fall off and oil will go everywhere. So kind of a better thing to work with. All right, so now what you're going to do is take the pry bar right here. Just like that, just sucked right off. And then it might be still stuck on the back a little bit. Probably have to get it off the back, but the best way to just kind of get it going is just on the front here. And you also do want to be careful not to score the inside of the upper oil pan. The other thing that you'll want to do is you want to put on the oil filter on before you start doing anything else. Just so you remember to put that on, you want to torque that down to about 1,000 foot-pounds. That way the next person who has to take it off, it's impossible for them to get it off. I've found that the oil just kind of keeps dripping for a while up here. So really, if you want to do this the right way, maybe the best way to do this is maybe letting the car sit for a little while. Really, you want to make sure that this is all cleaned up first. So that's going to take a little bit. But I have actually cleaned up all the inside already, and you can tell that it's already starting to pool up in different spots where it's still leaking from the engine up in different areas. On a very, very, very important note, do not, I repeat, do not torque these down too friggin' much, because I may have done that and completely stripped out like 6 or 7 threads out of that friggin' bolt right there. So only torque it down a little bit. Actually, the best thing to do, don't even torque it. Get yourself some Loctite, some high temperature Loctite, put that on the threads and just put it in there until it's snug, not too tight. Don't want to wrench on it, but just like 5 foot-pounds, maybe 10 foot-pounds. Nothing much. I torqued it down probably, I don't know how strong I am. Maybe 30 foot-pounds is what I did, and stripped out most of the threads. So put some Loctite on there. The other one side's totally fine. The other side, stripped it out. So should be okay with some Loctite. We got all of the old RTV off of the upper oil pan, so it's all nice and clean going through. One of the things you want to do is once you get off all the old RTV, you want to make sure that you go over it with a paper towel several different times just to make sure you get all the oil off. And again, I know I said this already, but you really want to make sure you get up in here where there's a puddle that can be getting up for oil. I've cleaned it out probably like 7 or 8 times now, and there's oil in there every single time. So you just don't want that to be leaking down when you put all this stuff on for the RTV. You don't want that to be leaking down onto the new RTV and then making it so it doesn't seal correctly. So just clean it off several times. So this here is the amount of RTV that you want to have on the oil pan. Not a whole lot, just making sure that those grooves that are in the center of the oil pan are filled up. They're not actually having any space in there, but there's still like some air pockets of any sort. And then same thing on the oil pan. You just want to make sure that there's just a thin layer on there as well. The directions say to let it sit for an hour, and then you torque everything down from there. What I've found is if you just put everything up kind of together and then you let it sit for an hour, then torque it down, that's one of the better ways to do it. Directions, like I said, it said to wait for an hour for each one to cure for a little bit. Once everything's torqued down, you have to wait another 24 hours in order for it to actually cure and be all good to go. It's really important that you don't put any oil in the car beforehand, because the oil can actually mess up with the RTV. So you just let the car without any oil. But before you start the car, remember to put oil into the car. One of the things that I've found every time I've done this oil pan install is that there is a little piece right here that blocks me from getting to the oil pan. It's not this one over here, but it's one over here. And just barely was just off camber enough to where I couldn't get to that bolt right there. I found the easiest way, just cut this off. If you do have a skid plate underneath here, you will not want to do that because that's one of the spots that actually holds the skid plate into place, I believe. So you don't want to do that if you have a skid plate. The issue is that I'm not really sure how to get to that. You might be able to actually just kind of trim away some of this so that way it's not quite in the way. This thing is looking so nice underneath the car. Obviously the rest of the car is super oily underneath there, looking really bad, but this part looks fantastic. So one of the things I got for the car that I'm really excited about, I didn't know I needed until just the other day when I was doing the oil pan on the car, is a different exhaust, a different mid pipe from Z1 Motorsports, which is where I get a lot of the stuff for the G37. We're having an issue with exhaust leak. I couldn't figure out why, but we finally figured out that the reason it's leaking is because this is a 2 1/4 inch pipe in diameter on the inside. This is 1 3/4 inch pipe in diameter. So what we're doing is we're actually choking the exhaust going from the high flow cat to a tiny little pipe going through here, because these guys that match up over at the end are 2 1/4. So that's not going to match up perfectly with the high flow cats, and also it's going to look 10 times better. Nobody will ever see it until they watch this video. So, and then on the new guy here, we got it. Oh man, it's even it's like 2.5. Nice. It's almost 2.5, over 2 1/4, almost 2.5. So that'll be really nice to actually have a lot more flow. High flow cats will actually be flowing, which would be really nice to have on the car. The better free flowing air going into the car, and the more free flowing the exhaust is going out of the car, the better the better performance you're gonna have with the car. We're gonna get the new exhaust installed here. Should take maybe 10-15 minutes or so, and we'll be good to go. But I am so excited about how this looks. This is gonna be so nice. We got so many new parts for the car. We got the new wheels on, new lug nuts, got the new exhaust going on, got the new oil pan. It's just, everything's looking really nice on the car. It was supposed to be a quick 10, 15, 20 minute job for putting this exhaust on. It has now turned into a probably a couple hour job. You then put this little piece onto these two pipes here. But then on the G37, you have an extra 11 inches, almost 12 inches of space here. It's a Bluetooth design, so the exhaust just flows perfectly through the air into that part of the exhaust from this part. It's a really cool design. If you want to do more of a hardline approach, I got one of these bad boys for it that I just kept for years and years. I was like, I could probably use that for something one day. Luckily for my case, we need 12 inches for getting that gap to go into place. This is 8 inches. So, still short. David and I are going to be doing here is we're going to be taking off this section of the exhaust, chop this off back here, chop it off right there. We're going to weld this piece, this section right here, onto this part that's chopped off. And then what we're going to do is put a gasket on this guy, onto that centerpiece, going to this part, and then going to this part. Nice 15-20 minute job is now going to be a couple hours. And I've never actually really welded before. I've done it a couple times, and let's just say I'm not going to be doing as well as what this thing is welded. So it's going to look pretty bad. David's already having some fun here in the back, so.
So much fun.
So much fun. So it is now 2 hours later. This guy, we cut off the old piece and we got the new piece on, about 5 inches. So that should give us to where we can have that 8-inch piece and the other piece in here to fit it up just right. This is my first time welding, as you can probably tell. So this part's gonna go on right here, and the other part's gonna go on right here, other way. Yeah, it's fine. Shape matching is not the strong suit there. Oh yeah. The quick 15-minute job that took 3 hours is now complete. 2 1/4 inch pipe going into 2.5 inch piping, all the way back into 3-inch piping, all the way back into this massive, beautiful weld job, all the way back into stock exhaust. It's probably 2 1/4 inch again, back into the beautiful resonated short tails, which are very dirty. They used to look amazing when they were brand new, nice and shiny and stuff. But this car should now only have exhaust coming out the back of the car. Finally got the exhaust all taken care of. Looks stinking amazing. It's gonna be so much better. Hopefully not have any issues with starting anymore, which I'm really excited to have that. So real quick, my check engine light has been on for years. I wasn't really sure why. It always had an O2 sensor issue. I replaced the O2 sensors and it was like, oh yeah, that's, still doesn't fix it. And I was like, what the heck's going on? And apparently the exhaust was what's causing that the entire time. Because as soon as I turned the car on, no more check engine light.